Welcome to Underqualified and Over It. I'm your host, Cindy, and joining me as always is Alice.
Hi.
In this podcast, we are over opinionated and unfortunately allowed to talk, so sit back, lower your expectations, and let's get into it. How have you been, my dear?
I've been. Hang on. Yeah, I've been great.
Not good.
Yeah, not good. Yeah, I've been really good. Feel like I'm getting used to the new medication that I'm on. I'm feeling a bit more like motivated to get stuff done now.
Yeah.
We went out yesterday. We went to play Dagger Heart at our local tabletop RPG place.
Nice.
It was all right.
Did anyone die?
Yeah. No, we saved 2 kids. Like, none of the party died, but lots of, like,
Civilians.
NPCs died, yeah. But
So
we had nothing to do with them dying. They were dead before we got there.
That's not your fault. Plausible
Yep.
deniability.
Exactly.
Does Daggerheart play a lot like D&D does?
I'm not entirely sure yet, because there's so you only have 2 dice, which is 2d12s, and they are your hope and your fear.
Okay.
And I don't know precisely how that works. We haven't fought anything just yet, so that's where cards come into play.
So far, it's just been environmental stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I was told last night as well that Critical Role are getting knocked off, like told to fuck off by Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, are they?
Because they're making their own game, so they're no longer like in like
cahoots.
What's the word for it? Yeah, they're no longer in cahoots.
There's no longer any camaraderie. That is strange to I don't understand really anything that Wizards of the Coast does, because I'm just over here like, if you just relaxed a little bit, you could be making so much more money.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a reason there's no like fantasy library from the world of D&D, because like people aren't allowed to write books. They're allowed to write fan fictions and stuff, but they're not allowed to monetize it. And it's like, you realize, if you just said you can write fan fiction, you can write novels based in our universe, but you have to give us 5% of the proceeds or something like that, they could be making so much more money.
So much money. Yeah.
And they're just like clamping down on things that are ultimately good for them, because like even Warhammer, which is another tabletop RPG game, it's just basically, for those who don't know, Warhammer is basically plays the same as D&D kind of, except for you're controlling entire armies rather than just one person. But even they have something called the Black Library, which is like all of these different novels that have been written by fans of the game. And you know, I've read some of the books in the Black Library, and they're really, really good. They're sometimes hard to follow because it is more of a sci-fi universe. But it's very, very interesting and sometimes hard to stomach because it's Warhammer. There's war, and there are things that happen in war that are very like tragic. So just, if you're going to look into it, just be prepared. But like, I'm just like, you could do that with D&D. Like, I know that there's like an Astarian book and stuff coming out, but I doubt that the person who's written it has gotten the permission of Wizards of the Coast, because I doubt they would give them. So they're probably not going to make anything off of it.
Yeah. Let me have a look.
I just don't understand the logic
I'm sure that's part of a series.
I'm sure it probably is. For some reason, Astarian awakened something in a lot of people.
Yeah, so it's a prequel novel. Um,
about his life before.
yeah.
But see, that's the thing. I would have loved, like, so I wrote for you, I don't know if we talked about it, but I wrote for you a character background story for one of my D&D characters that's like 50 pages long.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people don't do that, but it's also like I enjoy writing in the universe of D&D because I love the different species and the characters and the classes and the magic and all of that. And I understand that there's something that could be said like ACOTAR and Fourth Wing and all of these other fantasy books, like they do a good job of building their own world and having their own rules, but there's something nice about having guidelines about like the world that you're writing in has already been made and all you're
Yeah.
doing is creating characters inside of it. But I don't understand the logic behind we're going to throw money away as a company because we don't want anybody other than us like handling anything. Like it's just such a they rule the D&D universe with such an iron fist. It's like, okay.
So I've just looked it up, and it is part of a new partnership with between Wizards of the Coast and the publisher Random House Words. And apparently they're going to be bringing out more books, like with this partnership.
Interesting. But it doesn't have the author's name?
The author is it's a novel by T. Kingfisher, which I think is it's a pen name of Ursula Vernon.
Okay. Well, I would be interested to see their like if they had any social media where they go into after the book comes out, like what their profits from it are. Because that's my concern, right? Is Wizards of the Coast being like, all right, we're gonna do books now, but we're also gonna make sure that we have them written by starving artists. And it's like,
yeah,
or AI, God forbid AI. Like, you know, because if it was just them and a publisher, I'd be like, this is 100% gotta be AI.
So the pre-order for the hardback, ebook, and audiobook formats are available right now. So the hardback cover is $30 and the Kindle version is $17.52.
Interesting.
And from what I'm gathering, the we might want to get the audiobook.
Yeah, because Neil Newborn is doing the voice
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Nobody else would be able to do it.
No.
Literally no one.
And I'm really happy that they've managed to just turn around and be like, yeah, do you want to revisit Astarion to do the audiobook? Which is where I kind of have hope because Wizards of the Coast have been a little bit hand in there. With them making the TV series, obviously Wizards of the Coast are going to be like pulling all of the strings on it. I hope that they get the actors or who they were in Baldur's Gate to reprise their roles.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like a good, I think the vast majority of the team are like, yes, we want to be involved.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, I would be very interested to see the inner workings of how Wizards of the Coast is structured as a company, because I would want to see, because you have the tabletop like game developers, right? That they're the ones writing and rewriting and doing all of the rules and the stats and the things like that.
Yeah.
But then you also have the like more administrative like people. They probably have an entire copyright department. They probably have like all of this stuff, and it's like I can't fathom what it would be like, right, to have a company that large and have so many different departments handling so many different things. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's an easy thing, right? Just launching yourself into books and stuff. I do have hope now that they are writing books, that I'm happy about that. I I wish it were like people can write their own books, and maybe they have like maybe they can develop a department where they screen things and approve or deny the books, because I would love to write books in the D&D universe and
Oh
then just
yeah,
send it off to the Wizards of the Coast Publishing, and they read it and they're like yay or nay and here's your offer. Because but I don't like the fact that up until now it's been, oh, we're just not going to give you any sort of like compensation. Like, you keep our names out of your mouth is basically what they've been like this whole
yeah,
time. They're fine with people writing fan fiction, but what they're not okay with is saying that this is official canon fan fiction. And that for me is like, that kind of sucks, because like I want things like, obviously, like the Star Wars universe has a bunch of books that have been written as fan fiction, but they've also been published and been allowed to sell their books and things like that. Whereas Wizards of the Coast, any fan fiction that comes out has just been that fan fiction, and it's been free to read. Like, you're not allowed
yeah,
to charge for it, you're not allowed to sell it. But Star Wars, you could go to Barnes and Noble and pick up a Star Wars book. And there's like hundreds of books. I loved reading the Darth Bane series. It was so good. Um, but then you have like, and like I said, Warhammer has the Black Library. I just wish that D&D had something similar. And it seems like they're breaking into it. I'm very curious to see how it goes on. I do kind of want the author, I'm sure that they have NDAs that they're not allowed to say what their proceeds are and everything, because of
yeah,
course they do, because it's Wizards of the Coast. But I would be very, very curious, because that's what I'm starting to value in my life nowadays, is the transparency that a company has with its consumers.
yeah.
And so that would be very, very interesting to me. Oh, this makes me want to write again. Speaking of books, I hear through the grapevine you've been reading a bit more. Are you enjoying it?
I am absolutely loving the books that I've been consuming.
Consuming.
Yes.
Consumed.
So I am one of those girlies that, yes, I love high fantasy. So I loved Lord of the Rings, even though
Mm-hmm.
it was a slog to get through, because it was like, oh, this is a blade of grass and I'm going to describe it for 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's essentially what it was.
Right.
Um so I've been trying to get through the ACOTAR series.
Mm-hmm. I'm aware.
And um so it was difficult to read, but you got me into the what's it called? Like the audio book, but it's like a
Yeah.
dramatization kind of book.
So graphic audio is the,
That's the one.
which
Yeah.
I love it so much, because like there's like sound effects, and the thing with graphic audio is like you can read it, and in like, if you're just sitting there with the book, right, and you're just reading it, your mind makes up what noises are happening, what's going on in the background, but sometimes you forget things are happening in the background. The thing I like about graphic audio is it's kind of a little bit abridged, where like some of the things that are written out in words, and it's like the clanging of them sparring in the background is happening. Instead of describing that, graphic audio will literally just put swords hitting each other in the background, so you can hear it as it's happening rather than describing it, right? And then it just
Yeah.
continues, so you never forget that it's happening, right? Which that happens to me a lot when I'm part and parcel with reading books as an ADHD haver, you know.
Yeah, it's one of them where it's like it kind of like sometimes it takes me out of what's going on because of my ADHD. I'm listening to all other things in the background and I can't
Mm-hmm.
hear what's actually the conversation that's happening and I have to
Mm.
really concentrate on it. But other times I'm like, yeah, this is fine. So I've been listening to that and I've also been listening to the Into Darkness series as well.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
Mm-hmm.
getting into the smut.
Yes.
Because I'm one of those girlies that I like that sort of stuff. And when all of the stuff about ACOTAR was going off on Booktok, I
Mm-hmm.
expected more.
Yeah.
from it than what I was getting. And I think
Yeah.
that's what kind of like threw me off on the first like couple of books, is I'm reading it and I'm there like, where is it? It's like, oh, we slept together. I'm like, well, where's the details, bitch?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, I understand the whole thing of like the first couple of books we're world building and all of that, but it's like, yeah,
Right.
you can world build and you can add some detail into that as well as.
Yeah.
And I think that's what annoyed me. And I think also what annoyed me was I don't really like the Beauty and the Beast trope.
Mm,
And being hit with the Beauty and the Beast trope in the first book was not a thing for me at all. Like, I knew straight away, as soon as she went over to the other area, that number one, this is a Beauty and the Beast trope. Number two, Tamlin, what are you doing, you pansy ass?
yeah.
And I really just don't do. I understand that it's written so that we don't like Tamlin, and I get that. But we could have. It could have been written in such a better way than just, oh yeah, it's a Beauty and the Beast trope, and
Yeah.
it's we're going for like full Stockholm syndrome kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's been done too many times. Stop.
I agree with
Or
you. I agree with you.
yeah, or at least if we're gonna do a Stockholm syndrome, like, make it interesting. Don't make it that he's kidnapped her because of this, that, and the other. Make it so that they're both in a situation where they don't have a choice.
Yeah. So for context, right? You're halfway through Mist and Fury, Court of Mist and
Yes.
Fury, right? Yeah. I had to check my book to make sure. I've read all of the ACOTAR books that are out right now. I'm very excited for the new one coming out in October. And then I think the final book of the ACOTAR series is coming out in like early next year. I'm very, very excited for that. That means I'm privy to things that you don't know yet. And so I have to guard my words and make sure that I don't say things. Like, I'll come across a TikTok and I'll be like, ooh, I should send this to Alice. I'll be like, I don't know if she's reached that part yet. Can't send it. so I just have like this whole like file of TikToks that I haven't sent to you. But
like, I know certain things because obviously like TikTok has spoiled them for me. So I know that there is a fucking big ass motherfucking dragon thing in a library somewhere.
Right.
Who happens to be a girl that nobody knew about when they were reading it. And I'm there like, okay, I'm gonna get to that point and see if I can figure out if she is a girl through the write-ins, and I'm just gonna be set for that. I have the feeling that I'm gonna get to that point and be like, who the fuck didn't know that this was a girl? Well, that's probably the autism.
Again, I can't say anything, and I would encourage you, if you see TikToks about ACOTAR, just scroll past, because that's one of the things I hate. So we're talking about books and book trends, obviously, this episode, now that we're kind of 20 minutes into already talking about it. One of the things I absolutely hate about things is like when you're in the middle of reading a series, especially if it's like a popular series, which is why I stayed away from ACOTAR for so long, because I had so many things coming up on my feed about it that I was just like, I don't know who any of these people are. All I know is that I like to read books and this is coming up, and it's spoiling things all the time. And it's just like, I had to force myself to scroll past those things until they were no longer on my For You page. And now that I'm rereading the series with you, it's like popping up again. And I'm like, this would suck. This would suck if I hadn't already read the series. I hate that it comes up all the time, but that's why I like to. So I just finished a Book of Blood and Roses, which is another fantasy. It's like a dark academia one. You might actually like it. I take that back. You wouldn't like it. I was going to say you might like it, but like, so there's something about writing romance, right? it's a sapphic romance, which means that both of the lead characters are female. And it's kind of like it's a vampire and a vampire hunter and forced proximity, which is another romantasy or romance trope kind of thing. And the thing that I didn't like about it is like I would have been fine with it being like PG-13 fade to black kind of thing, right? Or it could have also been explicit, and I would have been fine with that too. The only thing I didn't like was when it seemed like the author got uncomfortable writing. Like they were trying their hand at the graphic stuff. And then they were like, actually, we're gonna cut the scene here. And it's like it just kind of felt a little bit like choose one or the other kind of thing.
Right.
Which I mean, that was the only reason so on my Goodreads, I think I gave it 3 stars because it was a fine story. It was a fine, like, I think that that's going to be a series and everything. But it was just like the romance scenes were just a bit lacking. You know what I mean?
See, I'm one of those people, right? If you tell me a book is full of smut and it's got warnings, it has it has warning labels on it. Fantastic. Give me the menu. Beautiful. Lovely. Right. And I'm going through that menu going, yes, chef's kiss. Right? I'm not asked about that. If you've told me that it's that and it delivers that, fantastic. If you have told me that it is a book full of smut and then it is not a book full of smut, that's where I have the problem. And that's what Booktok gave me with ACOTAR. Yeah. It was like, yeah, it's sexy. It's this, it's that. I'm reading it going, this isn't sexy. This is depravity of a different nature, of slap this boy in the face because he's a dick.
I love that you're I love that you finally hate Tamlin as much as the rest of us.
I hated Tamlin the first time I read this thing.
I know you did, but like when I tell you I love you, it will only get worse.
It will only get worse. Good, because I don't like him. Make me hate this character. But the thing is, as well, is if you tell me that it is a romantic story, there is hints at like sexual nature, fine. I will enjoy it because that is what I'm going in expecting.
You have the mindset like for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to be in the right mindset to read that sort of book. If I am in the mindset of, yes, I need graphic detail of how this man is doing things to this woman, or this man is doing these things to another man, or a woman is doing things to another woman, fantastic. Lovely. If I'm in that mindset, I need that kind of book. If I'm in the mindset of, I'm say for instance, I'm in the car with my parents and I just want a nice little romantic, this is very nice kind of book that's just going to take me while I'm on the journey and I'm just enjoying like life in the Fae realm and stuff like that. Because like ACOTAR is a book series that I have handed over to my mother because it's fine for her to read. Like, I would not hand over the Into Darkness series to my mother because my mum thought that 50 Shades of Grey was graphic. And I'm sat there going, after I read 50 Shades of Grey, because she wouldn't let me touch it when it came out.
Same.
And then I finally got hold of it and I read it and I'm just sat there going, bearing in mind that I had access to porn at that point as well. And I'm sat there and also like fan fictions on the internet. I was on AO3. I knew worse than that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
You had a very diverse childhood, I understand.
Stuff does not like, you know. But I read it and I looked at my mum. Like I was actually in the living room and I was finishing the last book. And I finished the last book and I looked at her and went, this is disgusting. She went, yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? I went, no, it's a really bad representation of what BDSM is. None of this is real.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
I feel like honestly, I feel like 50 Shades of Grey popped off so much because there was no there was nothing really like it, right? It was kind of like the world's introduction to smut in a way.
Yeah.
Cuz like we've all seen the paperback like romance novels that you always find in an old lady's knitting bag,
Oh yeah,
and it's
definitely.
got this woman scantily clad, like draped into the arms of this topless man who's got a 12 pack, and like they're for some reason all covered in oil, and you never see their faces, right? You never see their heads, but everybody has seen those, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of like the previous generation's idea of romance
Yeah.
novels. And that was a completely different thing than what you see nowadays coming out. And I think that it was 50 Shades of Grey was kind of a transition piece. It does make me very uncomfortable when you learn the origins of it, because it was originally a fan fiction about Edward from Twilight, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Twilight
ooh,
fanfiction.
this took a twist.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing is as well, it's like I had to literally sit my mum down.
mhm.
Like this isn't a good representation of BDSM.
Oh, did
Like,
you
what do you mean? I had to have the
really?
talk with her.
Oh wow, that's
I as a
interesting.
child had to have had to have the talk with my mother. But it's also the thing of I was abused. Like, not me, I was not abused. Like the character, he was abused as
Hmm.
he was just coming into his sexual drive and sexuality and all of that by an
Hmm.
older person,
Yeah.
which then made him like that. No, that's not how BDSM works.
Yeah.
That is not how. Yes, it might be in some cases for some people because they have been abused in the past and they are now taking their own sexual nature into their own hands and
Hmm.
they are now getting the freedom of that. Yes, I'm not denying that that happens, but it is not I was abused, so I'm going to be a dickhead about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
Because
that
that's what came through in 50 Shades of Grey, because he kept bringing it up.
yeah,
Every single time that she'd be like, no, I don't want any part of this, it's like, well, I had no choice, so you have no choice. You've signed a contract. Yeah,
yeah.
but the thing is, yes, we've signed a contract, but also there is a clause in that contract, and there should be a clause in that contract that I can say I can back out at any time.
I'm pretty sure
And there
there
wasn't.
was. There should have. I don't. It's been
I
a
think there,
long time since
yeah,
I've read
I
those
think
books. To
there
be fair.
was, but he turned around and went, no, there's not. Blah, 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 blah. I am a man. And
Oh, okay.
and another thing is,
I mean, I already hated him.
what
So.
was it written by a woman?
Hmm.
That's another thing. It's like, come on, you are a woman writing this sort of thing. Do your research into number one, the type of thing that you are doing, and number two, who hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing, is like why I try to give people benefit of the doubt, because writing is very therapeutic, and I think that a lot of times, like, something you have in your mind is maybe not the way that it's translated. I have a lot of respect for authors because it takes a lot out of a person to write a book in the first place. Um and then to then go through the trauma at this point of having it published, because it's, I mean, people are going to be harsh on your book. They're going to be harsh, and it's not an easy feat to publish a book. And I think that a lot of times, based off of things that I've seen people, other authors write about, and go on podcasts and do interviews about, they're dealing with just as much stuff, and they're working through it at the same time as they're, writing the book. It's kind of like, Taylor Swift with all of her song lyrics, right? A lot of her songs about breakups and all this different stuff and all this heartbreak and stuff. And it's like, but and then you look at her dating life and you're like, well, yeah, like that makes sense. Like a lot of this is coming from real, true emotion and pain, or pleasure, or whatever have you. And it doesn't have to be like a smutty book for that to be true. Like it can be. I honestly, so one of the series that I really want to read, I haven't started it yet, is Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I've heard is more of like a funny book. I don't know. I just see people bringing it up. And I see people making bromance TikToks, and I'm like, this looks like a world that I could jump into because I read everything. I read everything from Jane Austen to Sir Conan Doyle to Shakespeare to ACOTAR to like I read literally everything. Even I have because we were talking about it previously in one of our episodes. I found Giselle Pellicot's testimony, like autobiography, and I was like, well, I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to read it. And just because, like it's important. I've read self-help books. I've read all sorts of stuff. And while I lean toward more of the romantasy genres, because I like, I get what you're saying with ACOTAR being misleading with the amount of like smuttiness or whatever. Again, I feel like ACOTAR is a lot of people's introduction to the romantasy genre. And so it's not like there's so much world building that has to go into these fantasy worlds that's like you kind of have to have like 800 pages of just this is the world that we live in to give you kind of an idea. Now, I will say like I get why the author did this, but Prithian is literally just the UK.
Yeah.
And it's like okay.
See, that's another thing that I didn't particularly like as well, is because of there has been a very big thing in the UK's past, and it hints at it in the book.
Which
it's
one?
not, but it is. All of it. Yeah. All of it. So when you look in the first book and you look at the map, it looks like the UK and Ireland. And Ireland happens to be where all of the evil fairies live. And they are coming to Prithian to attack them. And unfortunately, it wasn't that long ago. We did have some issues where Ireland did cause some terrible things in the UK. And that's so fresh in our minds still, like, because I think I wasn't that old when it happened, and I think my uncle was actually a family member of some sort was actually in Manchester when that happened.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like they basically had to rebuild parts of Manchester because of what happened.
Yeah.
And it's like it would be like somebody, it feels like as an English person, and also if somebody in Ireland as well, I've not talked to any Irish people, but it would, for me, it would feel like if somebody made a romantasy about 9/11.
Yeah.
That is that's how fresh in our minds that sort of stuff is. It's like if somebody did that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, and then I can only imagine from like I would love to hear anybody who's Irish. I'd love to hear their perspective as well, because I haven't lived in the UK long enough to be privy to much of the at least recent history, but I know Ireland for a long time was oppressed by England, were they not? And so then to be painted as the bad guys is like, okay, that's not cool either. Like it either way is wrong, because it's such a, like if you look at the map of Prithian and it's such a 1-to-1 scale of like the UK, like literally the location of Highburn, even the name Highburn is, I think, Ireland in a different language or
Yeah.
something. It's like, oh, okay, so that's not okay. Like for me, whenever I'm building fantasy maps and things like that, I take a handful of dried beans, I throw it on a map or I throw it on a piece of paper, I trace around where the beans are, and voila, you have a map of a new landform and some
Yeah.
islands and like all this different stuff. Like you don't have to base it off of something that has such a real world connection,
Yeah.
because even Highburn is literally right where Ireland would be.
Yeah.
And it's like, ew. I don't care for that at all. At all.
And that's another thing. So I read the first ACOTAR without realizing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took myself away, and because I did I'll read it online as a PDF kind of thing. So I didn't see the map. And then when I actually got hold of like when I was thinking, right, I'm gonna buy the books and I'm gonna grab them, I actually picked up one of the books, the first book in like a shop, and I opened it and I saw the map. I went, oh no. And then I realized, because I'd already read the first book, and I was like, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah. There's a lot
and that's another reason why I didn't want to read them again, because I really hated that fact. And I was just like, I don't like it. It's like, it's kind of like people turning around and going and attacking J.K. Rowling for her ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sat there thinking, if this author has made this book and they've made it exactly like this, is their thoughts about Irish people like this?
Right. Exactly.
Or is it not? And you start thinking about it, don't you? And it's like,
I was similar, yeah.
But then I've obviously started reading them again or listening to them again, and it's a really good book series. If you go into it thinking it is romantasy, then that's fine. But like I said, I've had to break down so many walls to get into the right headspace of listening to romantasy and all of that, and listening to a high fantasy romantasy, because I didn't know that it was that. I had been built up because I was one of those people, like you said earlier as well, that ACOTAR was like really big, and it was like, I don't want to get into it because is it like, oh, is it all of the hype?
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people that won't watch a TV series as well, because of the hype. It took me until season 4 of Outlander being out for me to start watching Outlander. I think it was season 4 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I started watching Game of Thrones. What was it? Attack on Titan as well, I think, was like season 3 until I watched it, because it was so hyped up. I didn't want to watch it just in case it didn't live up to the hype.
Right. And I think that's kind of like, for me, so going back to the map thing, I listened to all the books before I even bought them. Like, I call them my shelf trophies because I listened to them, which is another thing that I hate. Like, if you listen to an audiobook versus reading the book, you still read the book. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Listening to an audiobook and reading a book are the same. Just one, I can do the dishes at the same time. So that's one of the trends about books that pisses me off, is like, oh, if you read smut, you don't read, or if you listen to books, you don't read. And it's like, all right, that's not going to change my Goodreads number, so I don't really give a fuck what you think.
And I'm sorry, but there are more words that are used in smut, right, that are more intellectual words than there are in like Harry Potter or whatever.
Well, Harry Potter is also like written for like 13-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
I've never read Harry Potter. It was never, so I wasn't allowed to because of the whole Wiccan thing. I grew up in a Christian household. Mom saw that she looked into Wiccan to write the books, said, no, we're not reading that. And by the time I was old enough to buy and read my own books, I was past the age of giving a shit. Like, if I probably would have related most to Snape if I was to guess based off of the movies. Because I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna punish like these kids for running around making a muck of this school. Like, I would have been so angry. But I don't have like a context really other than the movies to run it past. But it's like I was talking to my sister and she was talking about how she wanted to expand her vocabulary, right? And so, and this was years ago now. And I told her read Sherlock Holmes
Yeah.
because one, it's short stories. Two, it's the type of English we don't really use commonly anymore. So there's going to be phrases and words that are going to make you think or make you Google or whatever. So it will expand that. And three, they're funny. They like Sherlock Holmes is fucking funny, dude.
Yeah.
Like the way that I personally like because there's been so many adaptations of Sherlock Holmes to the screen. My favorite depiction was Benedict Cumberbatch. I think he did such a good job with the role, having read the short stories and then going and like watching that. I was like, oh, he's perfect. Literally like the perfect. But the comedy aspect of it, I think Robert Downing Jr. does a good job getting to that. I just don't like the whole, like, I didn't care for the whole slow motion stuff that they did in the movies for the Sherlock Holmes. But
see,
that's okay. That's just me.
Yeah. So I found out recently that it's the Robert Downey Jr. ones were Guy Ritchie that did it.
Oh, okay.
And it makes sense for a directorial standpoint of what he does in all of the rest of his films to what he did with Sherlock.
Oh, okay.
It really does.
Okay.
Because
so
you watch stuff like Snatch
flavor.
and you watch stuff like Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and then you go and watch, because I watched those two first and then I saw Sherlock, and then I realized, I clocked it and I was like, right, okay, no, I know why he's done that, and it makes sense as a directorial standpoint. But that's coming from somebody that's theatrically background.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then I wanted to touch on your point of things being overhyped again. So for the ACOTAR series, I agree with you. I think that the first two books are extremely important, but I also think they're extremely overhyped. Because I think that like you're saying, like you go into it with this expectation of something, and I don't know, maybe it's just an ADHD thing, where you go into something, like I have to mentally prepare to do things, because I have to make sure I have the energy to do it. I have to make sure that, like, you know, like I have to go do the dishes, right? Like we're going to record a couple episodes and then I need to go do the dishes. But I've given myself time to mentally prepare for doing that task, right? If I were to go and do the dishes right now, I would put myself into a bad mood by doing it because I didn't prepare for it. And I think that's one of the things with TV shows and books and things that, like, if you've heard about them, then you go into them with a certain expectation. And I think the first two books, because it was a lot of people's first introduction, kind of like what we're talking about with 50 Shades, it's a lot of people's first introduction to these worlds, and they see one scene, one romantic scene, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it's like, and then we also live in the information age where it's a lot easier for people to make content about these things. So somebody who maybe hasn't picked up a romantic book in their life picks up, you know, A Court of Thorns and Roses, reads it, and they immediately go into making like videos and TikToks and stuff about it because they're just like, oh my gosh, I never knew this existed. There's a whole blah, 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 blah. And maybe they have a decent following and then it just gains traction from there, kind of thing. I think that from like knowing what I know about the books now, having finished what I've read, I think these books are very, very important because again, if it's your introduction into the the Massiverse or whatever they call it, because she has like 15, 20 other books that
Yeah.
are also set in the same universe. If this is your introduction, you need these first two books to build the world. And you kind of have to have that with almost any fantasy book, right? And that's why Tolkien was so he did such a good job with it, because like you said, he described literally a blade of grass for 20 pages. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I think we don't need that much detail. However, I do understand why, he did it the way that he did. Um, but yeah, I think that when you, as an ADHD haver, if you go into it with that expectation of the different things that have been shoved down your throat on TikTok and YouTube and all of this different stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that kind of sucks. Because you're like, oh, I was expecting this. And then you're like, you feel disappointed at the end of the book. And then you don't want to read the next book because you're like, is this just going to be the same shit?
Yeah. So you get that, like, so I don't know what it is. I think it's like you have that expectation and you build yourself up, like building yourself up to go and do a task.
Mm-hmm.
You build yourself up to, this is going to be fantastic. This is going to be amazing. And then you go through it and it's shite.
Mm-hmm.
It's not shit, right? It's not. But because you've built yourself up for the expectations of it being absolutely fantastic and all of the things that you've ever wanted in that sort of book, especially say for instance, if you're used to reading stuff like the Into Darkness series, or you've your introduction, say for instance, if your introduction to this sort of stuff was Wattpad or AO3, and you've been one of those girlies that have been on the fan fiction, like, deep, like, stuff, and then you go into this thing and you've been told by people online, don't believe what you read online, but you've been told by so many people online that this is gritty, it's sexy, it's this, it's that, and then you read it and then it's like, it's not what you told, not what it said on the tin.
Yeah. I think for me, like, when it comes to like secular romance, right? Like the Lights Out series, or the Into Darkness series, for me, it's just a bit, it's the same kind of thing with the Twisted series, where it's like, if you're just wanting to read about sex, like, and that's all you're wanting to read about, and that's what you want to do, like, those are good books for you. However, I feel like I don't want to say more respect, but that's the only way I can think of to phrase it. I have more respect for romantasy authors who build a world and develop all of these characters. I can appreciate like a twisted romance, but at the same time it feels like the author knows that what their audience is there for, right?
Yeah.
They know what they're there for, and so they try and get to that as quickly as possible. And I feel like a lot of the characters in the story just don't have a lot of depth. Or maybe you don't get introduced to as many characters because so much of the book is taken up by all of these scenes. And it's like I'm not going to sit here and say that there isn't really any character development or growth, because there is. It's just not as apparent, because a lot of the times with romantasy, you're looking at probably a minimum of 500 pages minimum. Like, usually, not every time. I think the first and second ACOTAR books are a little bit on like the 300 realm. But they spend so much of that time. You maybe have, like, in the first ACOTAR book, you have like 1 or 2 scenes in that whole time. Now you look at Into Darkness, probably the same number of books, but triple the scenes.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so this is what we're here for. And it's like, obviously the author knows their audience and they know that's what they're there for. So it's okay. It's just like, if you go into a romantasy with that expectation, you will never, they will never meet, kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's another thing. So I'm one of those girlies that, yes, I love that. I love the books that are like, oh yeah, we're gonna do so many different scenes in the thing. But I also want the world building. Like at the moment in the Into Darkness series, I'm on book 2, and there's some stuff that's happening in book 2 to do with somebody's business. And I want to see that business go to fruition. I want to see how that pans out, and I feel like that's how it's going at the minute. But I really want to know what's going on in that part, as well as are they what positions they're in and all of that sort of stuff. And that's what I really liked about J.C. Lynn's book, For Whom the Bell Tolls, because the world building was there. Yes, for those of us that came into this book from her TikTok series, Hell's Bells, we already had the world building a little bit.
Right.
Because we were already within her world because of the TikToks. But she took it straight back to her main character, like going into that world, and she had the world building and her and the male lead meeting and all of that, and then they had some. I'd say they were lightly graphic, but they were still graphic scenes,
right,
of how they coupled together. But the world building was still there, and that's what I want in a book. So I want to have all of the world building, but when they do a scene of that nature, so instead of just like, oh, we spent the night together, I hate the fade to black stuff. I'm like, no, I want the world building and I want the details within the scene as well.
Well, and that's just a personal opinion, right? Like there are people who prefer the fade to black and leave it to the imagination. It's kind of like when you have like an author who doesn't really describe the female lead, right? Because like the idea or the male lead or whatever, depending on who the audience is, right? They a lot of times won't go into explicit detail of like what the lead character looks like because they want you, the reader, to be able to place yourself into their shoes.
Yeah.
And luckily, you know, a lot of the time it works. I think I've heard a lot of people complain that Tamlin's blonde. Like, no, he's not. No, thanks. He's brunette. It's like, okay. But like the fade to black stuff, like, it's not, I don't like it or dislike it. I just like to know before going in.
Yeah.
Like that's why with this A Book of Blood and Roses, it was kind of like, it was like in between. And that's what I didn't like, because it was like,
yeah,
right, you've had 300 pages, you've had two and a half, 300 pages of build up to this point. And it's like, all right, well, we're going to have 2 paragraphs of scene. And it's like, okay, like it's fine, but it's also like, it's like a book that wants to be a full-blown romantasy smut, but then also at the same time it doesn't want anything to do with having to write it. And it's like, you can literally fade to black and that's fine, like that would be okay. But it just, I think that a lot of authors aren't comfortable writing that type of stuff, and they would much rather leave it up to the person's imagination, because then they aren't burdened with like having to force anything necessarily.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's a genre in its own, and if you don't like it, that's fine, you know.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, it's like, if it's gonna be a fade to black, let me know beforehand.
Yeah, I think but the thing is,
give me the idea that it's going to be a fade to black. Don't give me the idea that it's going to be what I'm expecting, basically.
Right. I think, like,
and I'm like I said, I'm fine with fade to blacks as long as I know that it's going to happen.
Right. I think honestly, like this is what I was looking for in that actually Kenny is the one that chose my Blood and Roses book. He's like, oh, this looks like it's right up your alley, and he held it out to me because it had like bats and stuff on it. I'm very gothic, so he's like, oh, this looks like it would be right up your alley. I was like, do you know what this is about? I'll read it, but twist my arm. But when there's no trigger warnings at the front of the book, you're very aware of what is going to happen. Whereas when you have something that's maybe not as graphic, or it is a fade to black, it won't have that. And that's kind of one way that you can tell what the contents of the book. But the Blood and Roses book, it didn't have that. It didn't have a trigger warning or a warning this contains explicit material, blah blah blah, whatever. Which I think personally, if you are writing explicit content, it should be mandatory that there be that in the front of the book. One, for people like you, so you can literally just flip to the front of the book and see whether it has what you're looking for or not. And two, because if you're reading through a book and maybe you have a goth daughter or a goth child, and that's their aesthetic that they like, and you're like, oh, this book looks like it would be right up their alley. Maybe you don't want them reading that at whatever age they are. And that is completely fine as well, but you need to have a way to be able, like, because I don't know about you, but I've never met a parent that has a whole lot of time on their hands to sit there and read 400 pages.
No.
But
and that's the thing that also gets me as well. I know it's usually like it usually classes to people, but don't judge a book by its cover. Judge a book by its cover. Do it, because I'm sorry, but you're gonna need to. There's some things on the cover that are gonna tell you things. So there's stuff like in the blurb that's gonna let you know what's going on. Also, if it's a hardback book, it's got the little wingy bits on the side. Have a look into the wingy bits. It'll probably give you a warning of where things are going. If it doesn't, you might want to kind of like do a flick through the pages as well. Take in what you need to from the glance, and then make a decision whether you are buying this book. But it's one of those where it's like, you do need to, especially since like people are using like the Online Safety Act at the moment. That is protecting kids online and hiding them from certain things. It's hiding them from a lot of things that it shouldn't be hiding them from. But anyway, I'll get into that on a different note.
Censorship.
But you can't do that with a book in a shop. So you need to, it's like take initiative. If you are looking into buying books for your kids, take initiative. Maybe don't buy, if they're like 8, keep to the 8 to 9 section, guys. Keep to the kids section in the bookshop. Don't be buying them PG-13 books. You'll horrify them for life. Well, if they're in their teens, young adult stuff, keep to the young adult stuff. Don't let them go any further. You might think, oh, they can handle this.
There are some young adult stuff that should not be in the young adult section, though. I've seen a lot of things. And that's like one of the things, right, is, so I did the flick through of this book when Kenny handed it to me in the shop. And I flicked through it. The scenes were so short, I never came across them. That's the problem with the flick through method, right? And like, I got the idea of the romance when I was reading the blurb inside the cover, because it is a hardback. I understood a general idea of what the book was about. However, when I did the flick through, I didn't find anything, so I didn't know what I was going into, and there was no trigger warnings or content warnings in the front of the book. I think that if you, like, if there's a certain if you're using any names of any genitalia, if you're using any sort of names for any sort of positions or anything like that, there has to be a trigger warning, because that one would make parents' lives so much easier knowing what their kids are reading. And two, it's just like somebody going into it can manage their expectations of the book, because that's what happened with me. It was like, I was like, okay, when I got to 250 pages and nothing had happened, I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be a PG-13 fade to black kind of thing. Cool. And then when it wasn't, I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll shift my perspective of this. Now this is going to be more graphic than I expected. And then when the graphic was so short, I was like, okay. I had to shift my perspective again. The last like 5 chapters of the book, or last like maybe 10 chapters of the book, I was just like, okay, let's just get this done, get it over with. Because I have 0 books on my did not finish list, and I'm trying to keep it that way because I want to give books a chance. But I don't know. Well, we are over time, and my headphones are dying, and they're beeping in my ear incessantly.
Okay.
So, this has been Underqualified and Over It.
If you've made it this far, that's on you.
Catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hustle hard, hustle every single